What up, guys? That Comic Awesome here, doing another review, doing Infinity Countdown number 2, and blah. That's about what I can say about this. It's irritating, and it has nothing to do with the story. The story that is happening in this book feels like a really epic Guardians of the Galaxy tale. But that's what it is. It doesn't feel like an event. It doesn't feel like this is supposed to be this year's event. And what I think Marvel is doing is last year you had Secret Empire. Year before that, from like spring until fall, you had Civil War. Year before that, from spring to fall, you had Secret Wars. I think what Marvel is doing now is they're trying to be sneaky, and they're like, a 10 to 12 issue, mega event. You kind of get some fatigue around that, People lose interest, you drop sales. So instead of doing one major, 10 issue event, they're doing several small events, and they're like sneaking them in. So like right now there are two major events going on right now. You have probably the lesser one in Doctor Strange Damnation, but that's a 4-issue event that's that's wrapped up this week. I'll have a review for that later. But you have Venomized going on. So actually there's 3 events going on right now. You have Venomized, which is a fairly large event in the grand scope of things, and honestly feels more like a real event than this does. And then you have Infinity Countdown, which is only a 5-part event. So I feel like they're just trying to get these like events, but they're trying to give a lot of magnitude. Like, this is only a 5-issue event, and we're 2 issues in, so 2/5 of the way through, and we've only really seen one Infinity Stone, and towards the very end you get a little bit of another. So it leads me to believe that there's going to be, you have, hang on, let's see if I can. So you have all of these tie-ins, and I feel like the tie-ins are where all of the real story is going to happen. Like, you have Daredevil taking on, was it Turk, with the Mind Stone. That's going to be somewhere outside the main story. You have this Captain Marvel. She has the Reality Stone. Darkhawk, I don't know how he figures in, but I think he's going to play a fairly prominent role, which means, if you don't read Darkhawk 1, 2, 3, and 4, you're probably going to be lost, come Infinity Countdown number 5 in July. So it's just a little irritating, because I feel like they're going to try and cram like the last like issue and a half, like as much wrap up and story as possible, and they want to make it feel as epic as like Infinity Gauntlet or Civil War 1, which are like probably some of the most major events in kind of recent memory. Again, so far this, it's written by what's his name? Kurt Dugan? Jerry Dugan. And he had his run on Guardians of the Galaxy. I think it's still going on. I'm not sure. But this is essentially a direct tie-in to that, and that's all this series has been. And then at the very end, you get a little bit of Adam Warlock, which is the worst looking Adam Warlock I've ever seen. And some Ultron / Hank Pym. So this pretty much picks up where the last issue left off, with the Guardians, half of the Guardians fighting the Gardener, who kind of I'd say he was almost like Old Man Time meets Poison Ivy. He's like, the galaxy, I made all the plants and it was supposed to be good and blah blah blah. So he ended up, having a change of heart. He returned Groot to his like superior form, which now Groot can talk. Groot will, be blah blah blah. So it's like, eh. And they're fighting other like kind of plants. So they win. They go off to help Drax, and there are some interesting things that transpire that I actually do like in this book, because there are some. I always like plot points that will have that could have some sort of lasting effect, or lines that feel like there's weight to them. Like somebody says something and you're like, that's a pretty epic line. So the Power Stone is now a giant mountain, and I didn't realize it till this issue that maybe there was a whiteboard for this like long ago when Jerry Dugan started his run of Guardians of the Galaxy. But if you notice, Ant-Man is on the Guardians of the Galaxy now. Scott Lang is part of them, which I didn't even put two and two together. But he's like, hey, this is my thing. I'm going to shrink this down, and then we're going to get out of here. And so you're like, oh, like maybe this was the plan all along, but it doesn't work. But then it gets us to, which means that maybe the Power Stone is not affected by Pym particles, which, makes sense, because they are, the Infinity Gems or stones or whatever are essentially as old as the universe. They are, eternal things. So you'd like a man-made particle wouldn't have an effect on something that is eternal. So I get that, but it'd be interesting to see like maybe if it does work. You don't see that in this issue, but the next thing happens. One of the Nova Corps generals, I can't remember her name. She was pregnant. She talks about being early in the issue being in labor for hours. And she's like, my baby's coming, and so she ends up having the baby like on the battlefield, like like I guess hey, when you're in fight, you just got to drop trowel and lay down business, get the kid out of you. But this is what I thought was great. So Gamora is there, and she says, I sometimes think of my biological parents. I'm sure they fought and died to keep me safe. Thinking about kind of the situation that they're in, that this mom is going to have to fight for this baby to keep her safe. But then this is when it kind of turns dark, and she says, but perhaps they would not have if they knew the fate that awaited me, meaning like they wouldn't have tried to save me if they knew what I would have had to have gone through. And so he says, and she says, if we fall, you must not let that baby girl be captured alive. So pretty much, and she hands her a sword. And so she's pretty much like, if we get captured, you got to kill your baby. And you're like, well, damn, Gamora, that's pretty dark. And so she's like, the general's like, well, I don't plan on dying today. And she's like, no one ever thinks they will. So this is probably like my favorite page, just because, again, the weight of the words that Gamora says. I mean, and just how like, it started off as something like really sweet and like, oh, like, we're in this battlefield and like you had a baby and I bet my parents tried to like keep me safe and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, maybe it would have been better if they would have just killed me, like, and not let me be captured. So kill your baby. And you're like, damn, cold-hearted. So next you kind of get this, what felt like an afterthought story of Adam Warlock. And one, I don't know if Adam Warlock's cheeks are sunk in. I don't, they weren't this way in the last issue. But he kind of looks like, I don't even know. Like, again, maybe they're sunk in because he's been buried for, hundreds of years, hundreds of thousands of years or whatever. But, you have to sit here and think, like, come on, like, this does not look like Adam Warlock. So he goes in search of the mind, or the soul gem, which Magnus did have, the soul gem, but in Infinity Countdown Prime, which was a good issue because it did kind of give you a little bit of everything in that issue, Magnus was killed by Ultron. Ultron/Hank Pym. So Adam Warlock goes off to this planet and finds it pretty much inhabited by Ultron bots and like this crumpled Ultron civilization, which leads me to believe that the part, either A, Ultron worked fast and his civilization rose and decayed quickly, or the part that with him killing Magnus in Infinity Countdown Prime happened a lot like earlier than we initially thought, would have happened. So it's just, I thought that was interesting. There's a little bit of a twist and a surprise character at the end. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna continue reading it. It's 5 issues. I hope that there's something like weighted in this story somewhere where at the end you go, oh man, that's gonna be that's gonna be like a game changing thing. I doubt it, but like I can hope. But yeah, that's what I think. Subscribe over here, watch some more videos, hit me up in the comments, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you next time.